What is going on, guys? Welcome back. Commentary for you again, talking about Madden 20. We learned a lot, at least, about RPOs tonight. So Anthony White comes out and talks about taking the helm with RPOs. Over 200 actual RPOs brought into the game. I'm going to show you a screenshot of what they kind of broke down, what they would be. Now, they did say they were team-specific. They showed the Philly special. But to me, when I look at this, a lot of this in terms of the peak, read, and alert all seem to be concepts already in the game, such as your sweep plays. And they even mentioned some of these are bringing the same context plays of the game into it with just having the availability to go through with these new animations they showed and execute the play differently. And my concern with this is there was a lot of talked about in terms of the offense, but not much of the defense. Yes, we understand on an RPO you need to have certain keys. It's been in the game before, but the defensive upgrades need to be there. And I've talked about this at length in other videos. The defensive upgrades need to be there in order for any of this to be executed properly, because right now, if you're talking about over 200 plays, that's a huge movement in Madden. I don't ever recall 200 plus plays being added in. One of the more interesting things that they talked about, though, was the fact they were going to be team specific, and I hope that that means you have to select that team, not just that playbook, because I think in some cases we all know there's teams that don't run a lot of RPOs, so they shouldn't have that capacity to go in and be successful. They also mentioned in terms of the Rams, a lot of people had mentioned that they use single back sets, but EA had yet to cater to that. It's interesting. Anthony came out and basically said, well, they did it a couple years ago, so that's why we had it in the game, essentially saying, well, because it was in the game, we didn't get it corrected, and thus it stayed in it until this year. Now, the other interesting thing that I took from this is they talked about him and Moonlight Swami, obviously a former YouTube creator, has a great franchise channel. I'd mentioned a couple times on my channel, as a matter of fact. They talked about him and Anthony sitting down and watching games to actually get these RPOs in and understand them better. And that really put me in like a weird position of, okay, so you've got a guy that was known for franchise. You bring him in, and he sits down with another person. When you've got an NFL player in the building, a former NFL player in Clinton in the building, and these are the two guys that are put in charge of the RPOs, it didn't make a lot of sense to me. I'm not saying they can't do a good job. I'm not saying they shouldn't be doing that job. I just think if you look at what EA brings to the table as far as personnel, and if we're talking about football, we obviously talk about personnel in just about every context of the game. I feel like those issues could be handled better by players that had actual football or NFL experience. Doesn't mean Clint has to do all that, but allocate someone else to do it, because in my opinion, if you've got a franchise guy working on gameplay, kind of boils down to some of Madden's issues. Are you really putting the best people in the best position to be successful and make the game the best it can be? I don't think to that point anybody saw what Moonlight Swami did on his channel for years and years and years and said, I can't wait till this guy gets to EA and work on RPOs. Of course not. No one thought that. We wanted him to work on franchise because we had an expectation. He knew what the franchise community wanted. And personally, when I hear about him working on RPOs, it makes me wonder if his talents are being put in the right direction. Love to know what you guys think about this, though. Appreciate you checking out. I will be back very shortly with more commentary.